Hey, so last time I was on here, I talked mostly about postmodern literature in general, and in order to get there, I described some things about modern literature. But today, I just kind of want to focus on one aspect of modern literature, uh, which we're going to get out of Pride and Prejudice pretty early on in the plot. I'm not going to go over the whole plot in detail. I think it's pretty well known. But early on in the plot, one of the first little conflicts you get, verbal conflicts, is um, this moment in conversation with uh, Mr. Darcy, Elizabeth, Mrs. Bingley, or Miss Bingley, Bingley's sister, and a couple of other characters who are talking about women and what makes a woman accomplished. And what's interesting is that what Jane Austen does in that scene is, instead of Elizabeth trying to argue that she's an accomplished woman, she does something very close to her character, as well as much more critical of the society of her time, by, instead of trying to say that she's an accomplished woman for her own reasons, she says that it's a ridiculous notion that any woman could be accomplished enough for the tastes of the people around her, who are talking specifically Mr. Darcy, who's talking about how specifically accomplished and how specific of an attitude a woman would have for him to consider her to be accomplished. And what that moment does when she says that, she says she was surprised that Mr. Darcy could know anybody, let alone six women, who could possibly be that accomplished. And so what she's doing in that moment of criticism is, she's not necessarily criticizing the entirety of the structure of the society that she's left in for the moment being, but what she does do is take that society and put it sort of in suspense, kind of bring it into this place of suspension in the conversation, where instead of holding women's place in society into question, or the place of her own class or anything like that, she kind of goes for the whole gambit by asking how any woman could possibly function as that ideal woman in the society that she's surrounded in at the moment, the people who she's in conversation with, who she's already a little bit out of place to be around. And how that works as far as in modern literature is, it kind of shows the scheme of things as far as when it comes to critique within modern literature. Usually it's critiquing society in such a way that it does hold the society into question in a very emphatic way, but it doesn't necessarily show society or the structure of the world that's in play eating itself in a very violent way, but rather it does point out society's inconsistencies and contradictions in ways that emphasize it in an almost comedic way, in a more subtle way than you would expect if somebody was to come up and tell you right up front that this was somehow a feminist work, which I'm sure it is and isn't in its own ways. I'm not an expert on the 19th century female authors, really, but I know especially a lot of right-wing folks kind of expect, when you say that something is feminist, that means that it outright defies society, male dominance, etc. But really, what works like this do is they offer a lot of great little moments for questioning the society as a whole, but also it doesn't do it by ramming it down your throat by any means. It's really an entertaining work. It's really it's just fun to read. The characters are great. Mr. Bennett, the dad, is like my favorite male character, I think, in most of literature. At least, like, as a dad, he's my favorite character, I think. And it's just done in such an entertaining way, and it's done in such a way to make you really pause for thought when little moments like that happen, when little discrepancies like that in the society are noticed. And as a whole, the plot itself does address that, even if you don't scan the details. The whole plot of Pride and Prejudice brings into question the idea, why is it that these three different marriages that take place within such a small time of each other, with Wickham, Bingley, and Darcy, what is it that makes all of them particularly egregious to certain people? Because while Wickham's marriage is absolutely abjectly egregious, Darcy's marriage to Elizabeth is also deemed egregious by his own society, and so creating a scenario, a perfect plot to really twist in all these different elements and have all these different parts of this very structured world questioning one another and kind of poking and prodding at each other's places within that world, is just a really great thing that modern literature accomplishes in certain ways. This especially, Pride and Prejudice, but just a great read. Something I just kind of finished up today, and I just hope that gave a little bit of food for thought about how literature can make us question things in ways that are not thumping it over the head, and that are really just entertaining, all around wholesome way of doing it, and can really make a reader think about things in a way that they would not possibly be able to otherwise. Obviously, this was more effectual for the people living at the time that it was written. Now it's kind of a hindsight's 2020 sort of a thing, but hopefully it encourages anybody watching this video to, if you are writing or reading, to look for ways of including that in your analysis and in your creative process. So yeah, thanks for listening.